So let's talk about getting those files, all that great content that you've created, up to your web server, or maybe it's another type of server that you have and you want to move the files up. What type of options do you have? It's going to depend a lot on what the server supports more than anything else, because a lot of times you won't have as easy of access to change the server options, but it also is going to depend on what your computer supports as well. So you've got to find options that match on both, and especially if you're working with a type of server that's different than your client. Those options will oftentimes be very different from each other. You'll oftentimes only have a few options to work with, as opposed to working with two similar systems that are very heavily loaded. You're going to have a lot. So let's just take a look at some of the options we have and discuss those. One of the old classics is File Transfer Protocol, or FTP. And there's all kinds of variants of that too that allow for security as well. So it's been around a while, and they've done all kinds of stuff to expand on it. So you got Secured FTP, FTP Secured, a bunch of those. There's also kinds of clients for command line interface, graphical user interface, all kinds of ways to use FTP to move your files from one machine to another one, whether it just be a file storage server or whether it be a web server or whatever it be. You know, these are ways that you can move files, and this is usually usable across many platforms as well. File transfer protocol is usually there. Web-based control panels, depending on who your hosting service is. If you're going through shared hosting, a lot of times they will have access where you can either go on in and copy and paste with a web-based editor or upload the file, maybe both. But that's normally something more on shared hosting that you would have that, a web-based control panel, but sometimes you can install one without that. But that's logging into your control panel and doing it that way. Now, front page extensions or WebDAV, that's usually a Microsoft to Microsoft computer. But sometimes it's available on non-Microsoft systems, but that was a Microsoft developed technology, so it's more commonly available on Microsoft systems. So that's just a way to be able to, like, if you're working with front page to develop your website, you can actually upload it straight through front page, and that's how that works, is front page extensions. And then WebDAV is oftentimes used by Visual Studio and stuff like that too. There's all kinds of ways to upload stuff though. Other things may also support WebDAV. That's what I was trying to get at last. Now, backup and restore, and that would be on a big scale. You wouldn't want to do that just to get one file in there, but it would be an option if you were down to nothing else. You might get to the web-based control panel option to be able to back up the entire site and download a file for the entire site. Then you could open that backup up, make your modifications, and restore it back to the site. But I would have to be pretty desperate to do it that way, unless I'm really wanting to wipe out everything and redo from scratch, because that is working with everything as one big chunk. But that's another option if you have to. File sharing protocols as well. Now that's normally used. You generally use file sharing protocols with local area network file storage servers. That's generally not to upload to the internet using a file sharing protocol. So you just have to find your client that you want to use, find which program you like to use, but these are different methods that those different things will use. There's all kinds of FTP programs out there. There are hundreds of FTP programs out there. Command line and graphical user interface. Web-based control panels, it depends on your hosting. Front page extensions, all this depends on your hosting, but you know, those are more specific to your hosting on those. Backup and restore depends on your hosting too. File sharing protocols, generally not for web. So there, I think I've spelled it out. That's options that you'd look into and see what what programs you can get that support those protocols, provided they're supported by your web server. Thank you for watching.